Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspiration behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is an indie folk rocker who weaves catchy pop melodies into acoustic instrumentals effortlessly. With a few years of EPs and singles under his belt, he's hit the ground running and hasn't stopped since. Welcome, Alan.
Hello, I'm glad to be on here.
Glad to have you. I always like to start with where your music journey kind of all began.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Westport, Connecticut, and yeah, I was in music all my life. I started in the church like at around 4, like so not really sentient yet, but um yeah, I just stayed in there till I was like senior year of high school. So I was singing all throughout in the choir. That's where I kind of learned the fundamentals of like music theory, and then I sort of developed an interest for the guitar and the piano, like just watching my dad play. Um yeah, and that's pretty much where I started. But yeah.
So then once it's kind of you struck interest with going beyond singing and doing the musician thing as well, when did you kind of start writing and start doing the artist thing?
Yeah, so I started I my favorite artists used to be the Beatles. And that's when I kind of got the idea for like songwriting because they all wrote their own songs. So that was around I want to say like 12 or 13, like in middle school. I learned about chord theory from my cousin. Um, and then yeah, I started putting melody to words, and yeah, that's where it kind of started. And they were like songs were really bad for a few years. And then like I started recording, but it wasn't like I wasn't really like that into like producing my own music until I saw like this live stream of Jeremy Zucker. I don't know if you know who that is, but yeah, just him producing the song Lake House, and I really got into it. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, like how like intricate everything is and like how personal and intimate this whole process really can be if you want to make it that way. And like it's like just an extension of the songwriting. I kind of never really viewed production as that before that moment. Um like I used to kind of just think like, oh, you just need a producer to like just record you, and like that was it. Like they didn't have like really creative input until like I started to realize like how much creativity is actually involved in the process. If that makes any sense.
No, yeah, it's crazy how much you can do with a simple sound or how much you can take like a little acoustic guitar and voice demo and turn it into this whole
Yeah.
crazy thing. Like when I went to school with a lot of the guys that were in my program were like EDM guys. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I can't even fathom how you put this together. Like my acoustic guitar is sounding like an acoustic guitar and we're just going with it. But the ones that are just like do all these stuff with synths and then like all
Yeah.
it's crazy what you can get out of music. And it's sometimes it's like, okay, this is too much. Like I'm looking at too much right now. It's there's too many options, but it's really cool, especially when you actually know how it all works. Like
Yeah.
it's an art form in itself on top of it being a part of music.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much you can do with even just like a vocal chain and just
Yeah.
automate things, and yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. So at what point were you like, okay, I'm writing the music. We're not making bad songs anymore. We've actually upgraded a little bit to some good stuff. I want to start releasing it, you know, doing the artist thing. At what point did you kind of commit to making that sort of shift?
Yeah, I mean that like I didn't really ever think I was gonna start releasing music. And so I went to Berklee College of Music for 2 years. And like I didn't really know what I just knew I really loved music. Um but yeah, the first semester there, I just like pretty much locked myself in my room and like just focused like 6, 7 hours a day on just making songs. Um, and then once they got to the point where like after like 6 to 8 months, I think, I'm not sure when my first song came out, but like that's when like I started showing them to the friends I'd made there, and they were like, "This is really good. Like you should release it." And I like had no idea how to release music or like anything about like pitching to playlists or reaching out to people to help you market it, like making like setting up ad campaigns, like all the whole 9 yards. But that was the moment like when people started telling me like you should release this, that's when I pretty much made the decision to release my music.
No, I mean
Yeah.
sometimes you just don't think about it, and then it's like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, why not? Yeah,
Yeah.
I wrote like two songs, and then one of my friends was like, "You should make an album," and I'm like, that would not have even crossed my mind. We're gonna do that now, but that was not something that I would have come up with on my own. And here we are. So,
Yeah.
um, if you had to create a new genre around your style of music, what I like to call a genre of one, what would it be called?
A new genre. I'm not even sure. Like, I have no idea. Um, like, I guess like maybe my most recent stuff hasn't been like too experimental, but like I really like to play with a lot of sounds. So maybe like some sort of like experimental folk indie pop. I don't know if that's what you were looking for.
I get a lot of that where it's just like
Yeah.
folk, pop, rock, like just
Yeah.
a genre like mess of words
Yeah.
and stuff. Um, I always like to think of it in like a whatever your the like main category you would find yourself in, just add a like descriptive or defining word to that. Like for example, like this question comes from an artist friend of mine who's created hers petty pop. It's like like it's pop music, but there's like some sort of classification on it that just kind of is something you don't hear every day. But like I mean, experimental folk in itself, I feel like isn't really folk is kind of in its like rising era right now, I feel like, or it's reviving era a little bit. So experimental folk could totally you could just cut off the and I mean pop is everywhere. So
Yeah.
that's its own and
Good with that.
so but experimental folk could be your thing.
Um,
Unless there's another word you'd throw on there.
I don't even know, like fantastic folk. I don't know.
It's
Um,
hard. It's hard.
yeah,
It's hard
that's
enough to
pretty
pick the
good.
box. It's hard
Yeah,
enough to pick the box from what there is to pick from. And then to make up your own category, it's like,
yeah.
but it gets you thinking.
Does get. I'll think about that more.
um, is there a release or a song that you've written that you think best embodies who you are as an artist?
Let me see. I have to refresh myself on my music. I'm trying to
Like your
maybe
one song sample of like the one you'd show somebody to be like, hey, if you like this song, you'll like the rest of the catalog kind of deal. Like your like your thesis statement song.
I'm not sure. I mean, like my music, I feel like has been like from the first project I released, it's very different from the project I just released. Like I sort of started out like doing like more indie pop rock. Then I had like this sort of transition album of like between like a folk and like a with some pop rock elements. And now it's kind of like this new project has been like a lot more folky. So I'm not sure if there's like a good, maybe like my favorite is this song called What Love Feels Like.
We already used what's left of our serotonin. Never really noticed, always hung up in the moment. Now it all feels wrong cause you're missing on it. I know that I'm not one to run. It's just everything around me's getting boring. So I'll make the trip to Connecticut and buzz my head cause it's been a minute since
But it's a lot more like Sad Boy Hours, which is not really what the recent EP was. So I'd say either that song or maybe like How to Survive I really like. Yeah.
So what is it about the sad boy song
Yeah.
that like stands out to you if it's so different, not so different, but if it doesn't quite fall into the usual cadence of what your other stuff, like what is it about that song that makes you want to name drop that one over some others?
Yeah, definitely the lyrics I think are the most like personal and the most like yeah, I guess the most personal would be the right and like I don't know, I just really love the lyrics that I wrote on that song and that's kind of the direction I'm going to start taking my music to be like a lot more like lyric heavy because I used to kind of view music as a lot more m like melodically, but that song specifically is like super intentional with like all the lyrics and the subject matter, which is why like that would be the first song that I would wanna, or maybe Running too also has, but it's a lot shorter, so that's why maybe I wouldn't like use that song as a name drop. But yeah, it's definitely the lyrics would be the
Do you think
simplest.
do you think that your stuff like since then has been more lyrically driven and it just kind of has kind of been packaged differently so it's not your sad boy song that What Love Feels Like is?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like even like my songs have been taking me like a lot longer to write just because I've been trying to like really focus in on writing good lyrics. And yeah, like the most recent project, like definitely the lyrics on, yeah, every track really are like super intentional and like, because my first project, some of the tracks, like the lyrics are just like, I don't know, they kind of just, I used to kind of more write like I don't know like how you write your songs, but like just whatever comes to my head first, and like if it sounds good, it's a fine lyric, versus like if it actually means something. But
Mm.
definitely this new project has been a lot more like the lyrics kind of mean something to me at least. But yeah,
No, I totally get what you're saying because sometimes it's like you really, really just want it to rhyme and it to like
yeah,
flow right. But it's
exactly.
like, what are we doing with this word here? Like it just sometimes it just like if you try and force the rhyme a little too much, it just kind of comes out cheesy.
Yeah,
And it's
definitely.
just like, come on. Like
Yeah,
day, you can only rhyme day and way so
yeah.
many times in so many ways. Like,
It just gets boring. I don't know, like I don't know if you know Max Martin. Do you know who
mhm,
that is? Yeah, like the way he writes songs is a lot more like the lyrics themselves don't actually matter. It's more how the lyrics sound to a listener, and like I don't even know if that makes if you understand what I'm trying to say. Like when I say sound, like they sound good, they don't necessarily need to mean anything.
mhm.
But and that's how I used to like really want to write my songs, but I've really strayed away from that just because I guess my music taste has like evolved a lot more. But yeah, definitely been trying to focus more on the lyrics and just like coming up with creative things and finding more ways to say stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I think, and I don't know if this is like something I've observed just with getting older, and that's just kind of how it goes, or if it's truly how kind of the way we consume music or what we look for in music these days has shifted as just a
Mhm.
general society. But like I feel like things have become more lyrically driven than they were before. Like
Yeah.
obviously, I mean, you get the Taylor Swift people that pick her stuff apart to pieces and are like, "Oh, like these two songs off of whatever her new album's called are like clearly about like Travis Kelsey and whatever." I
Yeah.
that's one thing. That's a whole different. They're a whole different beast. But like why you've seen Noah Kahn rise in such a way and Lizzie McAlpine rise in such a way is it's like the way that they write songs and what they're writing it about and just the way that the like true like lyricism is kind of more at the front of mind than your catchy Katy Perry Teenage Dream or something like that. I feel like that is maybe that's just what people are looking for more. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's a wave. I have zero idea, but it lends itself well to the more lyrically driven writers, you
Yeah,
know?
I definitely don't know why that is. I think I don't really know, like, I can't really notice those trends because, like, a lot of time I talk to people that, like, aren't really, like, big music heads and, like, they don't really think about, like, lyrics at all whenever they're singing their songs. I guess it just depends what, like, sector of music that you listen to, I guess. But
Yeah.
totally could be. Totally could.
It could be. I think what's interesting to me, and like my brother is a big country fan, and it's like with country, I feel like I'm hearing the same thing over and over again a lot. And also if you listen to the words of some of those songs, it's like really like who's writing this?
Yeah.
It just like some of it like it's like, oh, like I see what you did there. And other times I'm like, we reached a little too far on this one. We went a little bit beyond our limits here and trying, we had an overstep.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of like the chicken and the egg, but without it being like an order situation. It's like lyrics or music, like it's like I don't think you could have a song that's really good lyrics and like terrible production or terribly like put together, or the other way around where it's like really, really stupid lyrics and like A1
Yeah.
production and have huge success on either end. It's
Yeah.
definitely a balance, but it's always interesting to hear what kind of people lead with.
Yeah.
So how do you sort of like approach writing something new? Is it like just writing down ideas and then putting it into like melodic structure and songs like that? Do you have like an instrument at hand? What is the typical, I will say, because I know nobody uses the same formula every single time. How do
Yeah.
you typically approach writing something new?
I mean, like, I'll keep like a running app, like a notes app, um, just like with words that resonated with me like throughout the day. Or like I'll see a phrase and I'll just like write it down. So just like I have like these huge lists of like words that I really, really resonate with. Or usually when I'm listening to music too, a lot of the times, like whatever artists I'm really loving, like if they use a like a word or a phrase or like a concept that like really resonates with me, I'll just write it down. So I'll just like have these like massive note sheets of like a bunch of words or phrases and concepts, and then I'll kind of just like yeah, start from there pretty much.
And just kind of piece it together?
Yeah, and then I kind of let like I guess like my subconscious write a little bit. Um and yeah, just that's how it usually happens a little bit.
Have you ever, maybe not as much more recently because you've been more lyrically focused, but have you ever written something and like finished out the song, maybe even like released it and then learned what some of like the phrases meant like after the fact? Like, have you ever just like found like, oh, wait, I kind of put a hidden meaning in this, but I didn't even know that that meaning was there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's happened to me after I've released a song, but usually that happens after like I write a song, like with a few days
Mm,
after. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's what that means," sort of. And just like understanding why it is I wrote whatever it is I wrote. But yeah, not usually after I've released it, because usually like it'll take me a while to release songs that I've
mm,
produced. Yeah, like I'll sit,
gotcha.
I'll have like be sitting on a song for like a year before I release it.
Oh,
Some
gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which that's not a bad way to be because I feel like personally sometimes it's like as soon as you write something new you're like, oh, this is like the best thing that I've ever done, and
yeah,
then like a week goes by and then you have that like actual normal gut check of like, okay, like I still think it's good, but the bar that I set it at is not quite right. Like we went a little too high on that.
yeah,
I definitely think I've had ones that I've released and then learned what like certain lyrics have meant like after the fact, because it's like sometimes it's just like if you let it just roll off the tongue and you write it and it's like you're more focused on like finishing the second verse or something like that, and it's like, wait,
yeah,
what did I just do with that and how did that just happen?
yeah.
It's yeah,
I try to.
I wish I could say it's more intentional, but
Yeah. Well, you can always
Maybe
say that.
that's true. That's true. It
Yeah,
was subconsciously intentional.
exactly.
um, if you had to pick two or three artists that you think your music is like a combination of, who would it be?
Combination of. I guess like it depends. Yeah, like I guess the most recent. I don't know if you know the artist Bren.
Yeah.
I was listening a lot to his music when I was writing the last EP I just released. I don't know if you know Pine Grove.
That one I don't.
Pine Grove I listen a lot to. They're a lot more indie rock-ish. Actually, I don't know. No, yeah, they kind of they do sonically sound a little bit like my music too. And then probably Jeremy Zucker just because I listen a lot. I like he's been the artist that I've been listening to for like 2.5 years, 3 years. Just a lot. Just keep coming back to his music. I don't know why, but yeah, those are probably the three biggest.
What aspects of each of them do you think kind of would be identifiable, I guess, or what you think is reflected in your music?
Yeah, I mean for the Jeremy Zucker stuff, like I use a lot of like just a lot of his production techniques that I've just picked up, like his vocal chain and like a lot of like these specific plugins. I love I love using them in my sound. So like that's a lot like more sonically influenced. And then for Bren, a lot of the instrumentation, like I've been using a banjo and like acoustic guitars um and then Pine Grove is a lot more like lyrically driven and like they've got me they like it's a band, but like the way that they write songs, I've been trying to like really sort of emulate the lyrical style, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
I haven't asked this before as like a follow-up to this question, but something about going through this kind of made me think, if you had the opportunity to collaborate with one of the three of them, not which one would you want to, but which one do you think that you would have the best luck in working with? Meaning like who would be the most cohesive pairing, you and which one of those three?
Oh, right now it would be Bren, definitely. Like 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely way more cohesive than the other two.
Because of the instrumentation and all
Yeah.
that.
Like the actual like vibe is a lot more similar.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that I could foresee that happening in terms of like the like when you said Bren, I was like, okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
those
yeah.
there's some alignment there for sure.
Yeah.
What is an outside passion of yours that you feel impacts who you are as an artist?
Outside passion. Oh, definitely philosophy. Like big, big, big. Like I'll go to the gym. Well, I was going to the gym every day. I've just because I've been at school, I've been like just doing my first syllabus week, but I'll get back into going to the gym. Usually when I go to the gym, I'll listen to like a 50-minute like philosophy lecture. And like it really helped like me think about there's this one guy that I watch. I don't know, you definitely don't know. His name's Julian Meridos, but he's just like a lecturer on YouTube sort of. And he does like I think like 3 or 4 videos a week, like live stream lectures that I like to watch. And that really helps me like with vocab and like understanding certain concepts. I don't know, just I don't even know. It's a lot more like implicit. I just feel like my songs have become a lot more, again, like lyrically driven and like more intellectualized now that I've been consuming a lot of like philosophy content, if that makes any sense.
It gets you thinking, and honestly,
Yeah.
like that's all you like. Whenever this wheel is turning, like we're in good hands. If
Yeah.
this wheel isn't turning, there aren't songs to be written. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, though. Have you
Yeah.
like? Do you think that there are any? I mean, it. the philosophy and the lyrically driven part makes sense. But is there any sort of like, I don't know if concept is the right word, but like idea that you've kind of taken from philosophy and fed into a song?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the like he does not a ton of videos, but like when I was watching these like lectures on like a lot of like religion and like how that like just like kind of dissecting religion sort of, I used a lot of that in two of my songs that I released on the last EP. Um yeah, I don't want to like get like too dicey about religion because I know for some people it's a big part of their lives, but yeah, I used a lot of like religious like or like philosophical interpretations of religion to like sort of write the songs are How to Survive and Next Stop, which
Gotcha.
funny enough, they got placed on like these like I don't know if you know New Music Friday Christian,
Hmm.
and like they're not like religious like they're like more like critiques on religion,
A
so
little
it's
commentary.
it kind of like even one of my songs, yeah, Next Stop is on like a faith-based playlist right now, and it's like the opposite of a faith-based song, which I thought was really fun.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah,
It just goes back to the idea that like everybody has their own
yeah,
interpretation of what a song means. Like some
exactly.
people read really deep into what a given lyric means, and other people are like, it just this is the concept, this is the idea. Like you're telling me exactly what it is in the chorus or like the title.
Yeah.
But maybe they took it that way. I don't know. I
Yeah.
would,
No, it was interesting. Like I was really surprised to see it on like these like and like I can see all the playlists like on my Spotify for artists and a lot of them are like Christian music playlists and I'm just like guys, like this song isn't like I don't know, but it's whatever. But yeah, that was like one of the concepts that I like really heavily influenced those songs actually.
uh I started doing this thing where I take a question from last week's artist for this week's artist. So last week's question, which goes to you, is when you're
All right.
lacking inspiration, what do you do to bring it back? Or what has to happen in order for it to come back?
When you are lacking inspiration. Honestly, I think the best answer to that would just be like keep trying and like yeah, I just think like you can feel like you're not inspired and if you just like keep trying to do something, I think eventually you get somewhere. Yeah, that's like my biggest like thing that I found. But yeah, I don't know if that works for everyone, but I mean to get you to keep writing, you just have to keep writing. Like there's no other way around it. You just have to like sort of make a habit out of it and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's 100% true. It's like if you wait for it to strike, then you're letting that essentially have all the power, and then you're just kind of working on a whim.
Yeah.
And, what if it's like you have a Tuesday afternoon that's like wide open and you want to work on something, but you don't have any idea. And it's just, and then it's like, oh, I have to go to work, but like I really want to get this idea down and like make this a thing. And then you don't have the time to work on it. But yeah, it's building a habit out of it. Like it's like creative process, like that's great. Like let it, like don't force it, but you do have to do something to sort of train that muscle and sort of
Definitely.
make it like, like you you have to do something that's going to cause that to keep showing up and train that part of your brain to like be active more than on a random day of the week. So that's how you kind of write more and then have more to put out and then kind of just keep the momentum running.
Yeah, and just like not putting pressure on yourself to like always have a like write something that's like great or that you love. Like a lot of the times like I'll just come out of just trying to make music and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not like that was terrible. And like even songs like that I've released now, like they'll start out as completely different songs that were just not good. but like there'll be something that I got from like like a session that I would do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to write stuff that's not good to write stuff that's good.
Yeah.
Nobody, like, there's nobody out
Yeah.
there that everything they write is worth releasing or worth even giving another look.
Yeah.
There are definitely things that you write and then you're like, there's something here, but it's not quite there yet. And
Yeah.
then you just redo it. And then it's just like you kind of have to follow that sort of hunch or gut feeling or whatever you want to call it a little bit. But if if you write stuff that's bad, that's okay. Because if you don't write stuff that's bad, then you think the bad stuff is good. And
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
So you have to write the bad to get to the good. It's just how life works. You can't have all good days, then they would just be days.
There
You
we
know,
go.
bad
Wow.
days is what makes you appreciate good days.
There we go.
How's
That
that for a little concept?
was deep. That was deep.
um, what is your question for the next artist?
My question. Hmm. Um, that was a good question. Did they come up with that on like a whim?
Yeah, it took a second. Everybody always has to think about it for a moment, but she came up with it pretty promptly.
My question. Not even sure. Um, Gotta be an interviewer. What would I ask someone? Let me think. I don't even know. Is this the last question of the whole interview?
No, no, I have a couple more.
Okay, maybe I'll. Can you
You want
come
me to
back?
circle back?
Circle back.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
want to keep you just silent.
We just sit here for like 5 minutes in
Yeah.
silence waiting for it to come. No, for that I'll let you circle back to it.
Okay.
Um the next question is, what is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
Sets me apart. Um, well, something that I noticed like that was really big at like when I was at Berkeley, like that I can like I play all my like I literally do everything on my songs. Like I mix, master, I write, I sing, I like play all the instruments. That's probably like the biggest thing. I don't know how many independent artists do the whole like 9 yards, but yeah, I would say that. And yeah, that's probably the biggest thing, I think. Just like I can do everything just by myself. Like
Do you think that doing like, and like essentially it's yes, doing it all yourself, but it's also like you have full creative control, which is a big part of being independent anyways. But
yeah.
like, when you're working with a producer, like you might not get it quite on the nose of what
Yeah.
you exactly wanted. Do you think that there's like any sort of drawback to being a one man machine? Do
Yeah,
you
no,
think, or
there's definitely tons of drawbacks. Just like I'm not a great guitar player, I'm not a great banjo player, like I'm not a great piano player, like or even like vocal arrangements. Like I'm not great at doing any one thing. I'm kind of just like good enough at doing everything. But like that's probably the biggest drawback. Just like because you listen to some independent artists who like have people that like help them with production. I think I don't know. I'm I'm probably pretty good at production compared to like even like a someone who does like who's a producer. My songs sound pretty professional, but like even that like I'm not like an insane mixing engineer or like a mastering engineer or like even just like a producer in general. Like I'm good enough, but that's probably the main drawback, I think.
I think, I mean, I get that. I used to mix my own stuff way back when, and then I was like, I always like to do the thing where it's just like, oh, I made this like little like string part, and it's like over here in the corner. I'm like, well, I can't really hear it. Like I want to hear it pretty clearly, and it's like I get very precious because I'm like, I created all of these things. I want all of these things to be heard, and that's not how it works.
Yeah.
There are some things that are just supposed to kind of supplement the main parts. And that
Yeah.
was something that I wrestled with a lot. Plus, I always like to hide my voice in things a little bit, which is like the opposite of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to just stop standing in my own way and let somebody else do it.
Oh,
But so I have extra respect for people that do it themselves. So good for you.
yeah.
Um, I think, oh gosh, what was my initial thought on that? I had a different point to make. Um, oh my gosh, I totally just like was like sitting here with like the next set of things that I wanted to say, and then I said, I'm gonna say this thing instead. And now I can't remember where I was going with that.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think doing it yourself it's always cool because I mean, you have full creative control over it. You can do whatever it is that you want with it. There's no, oh, I know where I was going now. Okay. I think there is no like, you once you said like high, like whatever you said about like certain engineers that are like really good and whatever, it's like, to me, to some degree, like obviously there are reasons that like some of the biggest producers out there are the biggest producers out there, and why that like Ryan Tedder of all people is like writing on all of these different pop songs and stuff like that. Like people are good at their craft. But to some degree, like I feel like there's very, once you get to a certain point, there's not a lot of headroom in terms of how much further you can grow, you
Yeah.
know, and like you don't need top of the line gear, top of the line people to work with to get the job done and to just kind of fulfill that. Like you
Yeah.
like the like $300 speakers you have can serve you enough to mix a good song.
Yeah.
And it's like so much of it is subjective too, that it's like, oh, maybe like Mr. Professional Engineer with like 30 years of experience wouldn't have done XYZ with it, but that doesn't mean that he's right.
Yeah. That's the
I
thing
mean,
about
you would lean in favor of Mr. Experience over somebody doing it alone in their like
yeah.
bedroom,
Yeah.
but there's no right or wrong, which is both a blessing and a curse in my opinion. But it's, there's like you can do so much with it without it being like, oh, that sucks. You're like, oh, that's like, that clearly was like a, that's like a SoundCloud level, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's,
Yeah.
there's so much you can do with it where it can still be good. It doesn't have to be done to the nines every single time, like production wise, because sometimes that's not what the song calls for. Like sometimes you want it a little bit more raw. Some, especially with something like folk, where in acoustic music, where it's like, you know, if you hear the guitar strings buzzing a little bit, it adds character. You
Yeah.
know,
No,
it
100.
doesn't need to be in this clean, polished way.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be more homey and acoustic and raw like that. You
I
know,
I 100% agree. I mean, like everyone's like the average listener also just like isn't really gonna care that
that
much.
too.
Yeah, like as long as the song like sounds good, like as long as it's a good song, like they'll like it. But yeah, it's really like depends who you're writing or for, I guess, in your own head, sort of. Like
Yeah.
if you're thinking about like yeah, like you said, like a 30-year-old or 30-year experience like mixing engineer and they're listening to it, like yeah, they might come up with like some notes, but like again, like you might have been going for something else and
They're
like
not also your average listener. Your
yeah,
average listener is not going to notice stuff like that. Like we pick it apart because we know what goes into stuff like that. But
yeah,
your average listener is just trying to have fun with it.
yeah, like 99% of people are not gonna.
Yeah. It's not that deep. It doesn't
Yeah,
have to be that deep.
exactly.
So as long as you get the job done, you know. What impact do you want to have with your music and with your artistry?
Impact like on other people.
What like impression you want to make, impact on people, whatever mark you want to leave with your music and with your artistry.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't really thought about that. I just kind of like making music. Um, I like, I'm not sure. Like, I just, like, I have had a lot of people reach out to me and, like, telling me how much they love like the stuff I make. And that's like great. But I'm not sure. I kind of like I don't know if I like because I don't really write and release music like with that in mind, if that makes any sense.
Hmm.
But like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of just however people want to hear it and interpret it, like that's fine with me. I don't know if like I have really like I want to make like I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if that was like a coherent answer, but
That's fine. It's an honest answer. That's all I care about.
yeah.
Um, so if it's not something that you necessarily approach creating music with that in mind, that's not like a gut check filter, which there's nothing wrong with that. Nobody has to have some people have a clear vision. Some people are like, I just do it because this is what I feel like I need to do.
Hmm.
Um, is there then something like is with writing more and more music and putting more and more stuff out and building that catalog and building the brand and all that different things that are just kind of a given with moving things forward, are there is there a north star? Is there something that you are just like with every song you hope that you're inching closer and closer to or approaching, or is there a target in mind even if it's not a designated impact of sorts?
Like a target in terms of what?
Anything.
Anything.
Anything. I know that kind of leaves it open ended and you can do whatever
Yeah.
that you want with that, but
I mean, well, at first when I started releasing, my main goal was like to get on like an editorial playlist. And that was like I didn't know how hard that was gonna be. But by my third song, like I got onto like I don't know if you know Fresh Finds.
mhm,
Yeah, and then I was kind of like, okay, now my music is sort because like as like a way of like validating like I can make music at like a professional level, whatever that means. That was like my main thing because like that's why I went to Berkeley was to learn how to make music. That like if your average Joe heard it, they'd be like, yeah, that sounds like it was made in a studio. Like but like that sounds like it was a professionally made song with like a professional like songwriter. Like that you couldn't really distinguish it from like I guess like your Noah Kahans or like your Lizzie McAlpine.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, when I got on that place, that was like my that was my North Star. Um, from there, I'm not really sure if I'm like super like f focused towards doing one thing, if that makes sense. But like I guess like I would imagine like a lot of artists probably do think about that. I don't know. Yeah, there's not really like a I just like to do it. Like I like to make music on my own time. And then yeah, when I can release it and hopefully people hear it, I guess. Yeah, that's like I don't know, like yeah, there's not really a North Star. I don't know if that's like a great interview answer, but
Like I
uh,
said, that if that's what it is, that's what it is. Like there's no wrong way to go about it.
yeah,
Like there's you accomplished one of your goals, and so now it's just kind of like, okay, what's the next thing?
yeah. I guess I gotta figure that out. I gotta
What's the next editorial playlist goal?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, um, okay, but I only have one more question, so I will circle back and see if you've given further thought to your question.
Yeah.
Now it's time.
Okay, it's time. I guess like if I wanted to learn more about an artist, maybe okay, maybe this is a good one. Like how much has your environment influenced your music and what specifically about the environment? Like, do you draw from the most? I think that was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Because like that's definitely something that I look for like in my own songs, just like what in my day-to-day life or like about me can I put into this song?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like it's something that it's I think it's also one of those things that's like it's just kind of develops over time or you become more aware of it over time. Because like since I lived at home until probably a little over a year ago, and now I live in North Carolina with my boyfriend, and I am a work from home person. He goes to the office 5 days a week pretty much, or for the most part. And so I am very like in my own little bubble for a decent amount of the day.
Yeah.
Um, and so I feel like a lot of the stuff that I've written more recently has been very intrinsic and very just like stream of consciousness kind of like ideas and stuff like that, and very like self-reflective rather than like writing about different experiences and stuff like that, because that's where most of my environment technically has been. Plus when you're in an empty apartment by yourself for 8 hours a day, you kind of just have nothing to do but think.
You gotta go.
So
Uh,
it it has its good days more so than its bad days, but it's just like, that it just it's a good example of like what your day to day looks like can very much impact what you're doing. I also think who you listen to, or who you're like more conscious about listening to, like, like I went through a brief, somebody told me once that my music sounded like Joni Mitchell. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think that puts me on way too high of a pedestal. Somebody needs to like humble the ego a little bit after that. Yeah, so put me back in my place, please.
yeah.
Thank you. But I listened to a lot of her stuff after that, and I wrote a song that was like, I feel like this is like if I did something with her kind of thing. Like it definitely had that influence. And so it's like it's also in like the music that you consume. So
Yeah.
being also, you can also then kind of take that and make it more intentional and listen to stuff that's like what you want to write,
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I think that's a good question, because it is really like, what is it about your, that's kind of what I try to get at a little bit with the passion thing,
Uh,
is like, what is it about your non-music life that impacts your music
yeah,
life, and how?
definitely. Yeah, that's definitely like a more specific version. Yeah.
No, I that's a good question. So I'm looking forward to asking that one next week. Um, okay, like I said, this brings us to the final question, which is ultimately the concept behind the podcast. So the
Okay.
question is, why music?
Why music? I don't even know. Why music? I guess like I will say like my first experience with like loving music was just like a very like um what would the word be? I don't know if bodily, that's like a weird word, but like just like like a sense of euphoria, kind of like a drug a little bit.
An out of body experience? Is that what you're going for?
Oh, no, not out of body, like very um just like I guess euphoric would be the right word, but like music just really, I mean, this is probably true with a lot of people, like pretty much everyone. Like, I guess the first time like I really heard a song like when I was little, like I don't remember the song, but like it really just produced a feeling in my body that like I guess no other experience really had, and that's like just kind of ties me to the world around me in a weird way. I don't know, but that would be like why music, I guess. It's just a way of like it's almost like a language um of like vibrate that this sounds so nutty, but like like a language of vibrations. But I don't know, like it's like a way to connect with I guess the world around you.
They
And yeah.
they say music is the universal language.
Yeah, there we
Is
go.
that what you're aiming for
Yeah,
here?
sure. That works too. Music is the universal language.
It's the
Yeah,
language of vibrations, aka the universal language.
there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really, it's just it's like no other. And I ask this question and I get a very similar answer every time, of like it's different. It's like, why not? Like if you have the opportunity to do something with it, are
Yeah.
you really going to turn that down? Like that kind of thing. And it's always interesting to hear the different ways that people articulate that as an idea. And it's just, yeah, I mean, music is a really cool thing. It's different than anything else. You can't compare it to really anything else. It
Yeah.
just, and it's just like it has that, there's something about it that just gets to you in a way that nothing else can.
Yeah. No,
It's
it's very weird.
special.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. You can check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.